Hey, folks, welcome to another episode of On the Line. As usual, I'm with my co host here, Jonathan Bolte. This is episode 12. 12 episodes already, and things just keep going. Well, we're still here anyway. We may all be paying $7 per gallon in gas tomorrow, but we're still here. So that's all that really counts right now. Don't ask me. Okay, so what we're going to be talking about today in this edition of On the Line is a couple of things, really, but we're going to be talking about perfecting your shot, constructing your shot, how you can do that, and basically what's the best way you could find yourself steering to improvement. And the one thing that I want to say, I'm going to have Jonathan give his take on this also, but one thing I want to say is you hear a lot of coaches say strive to perfection. If you study anything about the Eastern philosophies, they will tell you there is no such thing as perfection. And the reason why there's no such thing as perfection, because if you reach perfection, then you stop at a point. Then you believe that there's a point where you can never improve at all. And that happens to a lot of people where they go, okay, I hit my goal, and now what? And you kind of just start going downhill from there. But if you constantly strive to improve, that's how you can actually perfect something, but continually sharpen it, make it better. Just a philosophy that my coach taught me. You'll hear some of the things that we go over today kind of revolve around that. But Jonathan, you selected this topic for today, so tell me what your take is on when you want to continually improve. You want to start your shot process. What are some of the things that you tell people at first?
So that's a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on each person what they might need, but um, like let's use me for an example. I am always trying new things. I am always working on my form. I'm always working on my mental aspect of the game. Um, my heck, I will try new gear on the bow. Um, because for me, it's at a point where one point matters. Um, so if I can learn something or do something or try something on the bow that will help me get that point, great. But I don't know until I try.
Yep.
So for me, it's a constant learning and honestly, there's times I'm like, oh right, that's what I'm supposed to be doing, and relearning aspect to it. For me.
So what I basically tell people when they start asking me, "Oh, I want to work on my shot. I want to work on this," and then if you let them self-diagnose themselves, they'll come up with 100 things that they want to work on, and that's the biggest problem. You have to, if you actually want to improve at something, you have to pick your weakest point and go from there. Now, the problem is sometimes identifying your weakest point is really hard, especially when it's self analysis and you're the only one doing it, because you may not realize what's going on. You might have a person who constantly drops shots off to the left, doesn't know why it's happening. Well, there's ways to find that out. This is modern times, fortunately. So we have these little things hanging around. Your cell phone. You can set this, you can get a little stand for it. You just put it anywhere, lean it up against something, and record a couple of your shots. And then just go through them and know that, okay, this was shot number one. I marked shot number one on the target. This is what it did. All right, so let's see what I did different in that shot sequence. Shot number two. So you have tools that you can use for it. It's helpful if you have a coach to help you. But there's a lot of people out there who don't have access to a coach. You and I both know that because
Oh
we
yeah.
see them all the time. That does not mean that you have to stay stuck wherever you are. You should still be able to analyze what's going on and come up with a plan. Now, the plan is the biggest thing. If you don't plan something, nothing ever works. So you can't just go, well, today I'm going to do this, and I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. You have to define a course that's going to help you get to where you want to be, to help you constantly improve. Now, like you were saying, sometimes you try to figure out what's going on, you pick one thing, and then you start working on that. And when you think you've overcome that, then you work on something else.
Yep.
And that's perfectly fine. You and I have both been doing this a long time. Um, but people who just started, they're kind of all in the clouds about it. They don't know what's going on half the time. So their head jumps around from one thing to the other to the other. We see that a lot. So let's just say someone's brand new. One thing that I do, and I don't know if you do this or not, but I suggest this to a lot of people. If you were just starting out as a brand new race car driver, you would want to know everything possible about the car that you're driving, correct?
Hmm.
Because if you don't, well, bad things can happen. For some reason, people in this sport don't do that. So they'll go, they pick up a bow and know absolutely nothing about it. You got to know some basics because a lot of times the thing that's hurting you is the bow itself and the way it's configured. Because there might be something off. The timing may have jumped off one day and the timing's all of a sudden off and all of a sudden your shot's going all over the place. That's not necessarily you. Now, that can cause people to go down rabbit holes and chase things that aren't there, where their form is fine, but the bow is messed up. So I think the first part of anything, learn your equipment, know what it is. A simple check once a week will tell you if your draw length's correct, if the axle to axle still fine, if the brace height's fine, and judging by that, that's like a quick review of what's going on with the bow. You can know if the bow is going to be part of your problem or not. Because one of those measurements is off, then you've got other problems going on. You got to address those before you continue to do anything. So, all right, say we got somebody who's been shooting for a little while, and we want to coach them on how to become better at what they're doing. The first thing that I do, and we'll find out what the first thing you do is, first thing I do is I ask them, I said, okay, so what do you think is your biggest problem? And after 45 minutes of listening to that, because they will go on and on and on, I'm like, okay, tell you what, we can do structured approach to this, or we could just work on whatever it is that you think is your biggest problem. Some people have a hard time picking that out, but I always suggest the first thing from most people. You may think other things are going on. Almost guaranteed it's how you're releasing the bow. And it has to do with either a recurve, a compound shooter, doesn't make a difference. The release is a big part of it. So I'll start having them work on that. And that's where the blank bail comes in because they're just working on no fear of losing the arrow or anything like that. They're in front of the bail and they're just working on their execution, working on their execution. They're videotaping the execution. They're working on that. Someone comes to you and asks you how to get started. How do you necessarily approach it? Because you got a lot of people come in there sometimes for the first lesson or come back to you for lessons occasionally. How do you do it when you want? Do you pick out one thing with them, or do you just say, "What do you want to work on today?"
So I will ask them what they think their problem is.
Mm-hmm.
Um, After they tell me what they think it is, I'll watch them take a few shots.
Okay.
Um, and then in watching, I'm able to pick out things and say, okay, I saw this. Today we're going to work on this thing.
Okay. And if they ask you to set a plan for them on how to fix this, do you say you're only going to work on this particular thing for a while and then you're going to move on to something else?
Yep.
Because I think that's kind of important.
Yeah, and what
Um,
I'll do is I'll tell them like, listen, we're gonna work. You're gonna work on this one thing for as long as it takes, as much as 2 months, as little as 2 weeks.
okay.
Um, and when you get to the point where you don't have to think about that thing anymore, we'll move on to the next. And I'll actually give them a list of things, not necessarily in order. And I will let them, you know, I'll let them say, okay, this is this is the number one thing, this is number two, this is three, and they can go through that list as they want, kind of thing. But I tell them when you go to the next thing, it's the same idea. You keep working on this until you don't think about it anymore. Until you start, you're at full draw, and it's like, and you're doing what we've talked about fixing it, about whatever it is, um, and it's you're just doing it without thinking.
Hmm.
It's subconscious.
And I think that you just mentioned one of the most important things when it comes to any type of corrective training at all is write it down, because people don't write things down. And human beings react better and work on things harder when they have it there, not just as a reminder, but always to tell them, this is what I got to do. This is the thing that until I check it off my list, it's still a problem. And some things they may find out, like say if you have 10 things to work on, they may realize by the time they get to thing number four, that thing number four is no longer a problem
Mm-hmm.
because it's already been resolved by you fixing something else.
Yep.
So form and release issues are two of the most common problems that I see with people shooting, and consistency. And when it comes to like release issues, for me, it has to do with they start breaking down. So if they're holding, all of a sudden you start seeing them do this and collapse, collapse, collapse. But people, when they're at full draw, don't even realize that's happening,
No.
and they don't realize what a quarter inch of collapse really does to a shot. And it's such an important thing. Um, if you shoot a lot in leagues, you'll become more and more consistent, which is a training tool that you have a lot of leagues over there. It's great for people to do all the time. But shooting in leagues forces you to be in a competition where you're forced to shoot your best possible. And sometimes at first it's nerves to get you, which we'll get to in a little bit, because a mental aspect of shooting is a large part of the consistency program that you have to have. Um, but if you don't put yourself under pressure, then it's not going to work.
Yep.
I'm sure you see people who come down to the range and when nobody's there or when it doesn't mean anything, shoot lights out.
Oh yeah. All day. All day.
And the minute you turn it on to to a competition, it's like, oh my god, what am I going to do? And they can't hit higher than a 9. I've seen people that can't hold in the 10 no matter what the minute they know it's for score.
Yep.
So one other thing that I would mention is, like we already mentioned, going, picking out, making a list, pick out the thing that you want to work on, and every day take little notes. Hey, this is what's going on today. This is what I noticed. Because as you learn things and you find out things about yourself, you're not going to remember them every day. 2 weeks from now, you might forget what you worked on. But
Right.
if you have a note and it says, if I don't, if I don't keep the blade of my hand flat when I'm shooting, then I get weird stuff happening. Because when someone's shooting holding a release, and you hear all kinds of things. Some people load the release deep, some load it shallow, and then the biggest problem that I see, there's nothing wrong with holding a release like this, by the way, because as long as you're consistent in doing it, who cares? But there is something wrong in holding a release like this, because once this hand collapses, now you've changed the angle of release, you've changed a whole bunch of things, and you've got to be able to control that. Um, so write it down and do that. What's the next thing you'll work on with them? Because like you just said, write down what's going on, pick something on the list. I say add notes to it. What else would you tell them? Don't take it from now you're working with somebody who's a little bit more advanced. Typically the guys I see who have the biggest problems are bow hunters. Like they only get one shot opportunities at what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to make sure that shot is 100%. They're also a little bit more resistant to taking criticism about things that they do in their shots. We both know that.
Oh yeah.
Um, so for them, time wasted is like money to them. They don't want to waste any time. So if you're working with a little bit more advanced shooter like a bow hunter, what would you pick out from their shot cycle or something like that that they need to work on, depending on whether or not you see it or you see something? Do you look at when they're shooting and see something consistently happening and then try to analyze it from there?
Yeah. So I try to I you know me. I'm very observant of the shooters I'm working with, and I
Mhm.
watch them. Um, I'm not watching downrange. I'm not watching unless they've asked me to come to check out their bow and what their arrow is doing. I'm watching their shot, them.
Hmm.
Um, so I might see I might see them trying to maybe steer the bow
Hmm.
almost, keep it on the X or fight it to get back to the X. I'm I ask a lot of questions too. I asked, where are you looking? Are you looking at your
Hmm.
pin? Are you looking at your target? Um, are you looking at the entire target? Are you looking at
Hmm.
the X? Uh, and then I ask, you see that shake in your sight? Are you trying to fight that?
Hmm.
Um, things like that. Um, and yeah, if I see if I see someone trying to they're shaking a lot or they're making quick small little adjustments, I'm like, you're trying to keep your pin on that target, aren't you? And they're
Hmm.
like, oh yeah. I'm like, okay, now we're gonna get into more mental things.
Hmm.
Um, don't this is not a sport of there's a fine line of control
Yeah.
and letting the bow do what it wants.
Hmm.
Um, I use the analogy of a high-end sports car. To a certain degree, you have to let the machine do the work.
Hmm.
Um, if you're trying to control every aspect of it, you're not going to get the results you want, and it might actually end badly for you. So there's a almost a sense of yielding to the bow.
Hmm.
You're yielding just like in martial arts. You sometimes you need to yield to your opponent
Hmm.
um, to win. Sometimes it's the same with this. You need to yield to the bow and let the bow do what it wants to do. You can't give it too much input. Um, and yeah, so we start talking about mental things with that.
So one thing that, let's just say, one of the one of the more important training techniques that I learned from my coach was, and if you watch any like old school type of uh for lack of a better word, kung fu films and stuff like that. And when they were training, they would adversely train and do things that would so exaggerate what they would need to do in real life,
Hmm.
so that when they actually did the skill as it's supposed to be done, it was way easy. So I give you an example. When I'm training and I'm out doing a run or something like that, I can do a run and that'll work for conditioning yourself, but it doesn't put you under any stress. It doesn't make any difference. Just like shooting all the time at the range when there's nothing on the line doesn't sharpen your mental skills.
Hmm.
So I'll run with a 50-pound weight vest on me. And let me tell you something, 50 doesn't sound like a lot, but when you do about 4 miles with it, that 50 feels like 500 pounds after a while. And the minute that you take it off, you're like, oh, wow, this is different. You know what I mean? So, one thing that I can suggest for target shooters out there, if you're the type of person who has a hard time holding on target, first, if your shot process is correct, then you should already know, if a coach has worked with you before, that you either concentrate on the target or concentrating on the pin. You can't do both because the human eye doesn't have the ability to focus in two different places at once. It's going to focus at the close or it's going to focus at the far. And we, for the most part, tell people focus at the far. So once your pin or your dot gets on the target, your eye should be locked there. Forget about the pin. Now, the pin helps guide you there, but now that helps tell your eye where to focus. Your eye focus remains there. Because if they start watching the pin, they'll start to pick up movement. Like, say, if this was the pin inside the scope, they'll start seeing it go like this, or they start seeing it go like that. And that's bad. So, what I'll do, if I have a person who will not break out of that, we discussed a couple of episodes ago about what happens when somebody tries a scope that's too powerful for them.
Hmm.
they see all that movement. They're like, it's moving around too much. And what I explain to them is it's not moving around any more than it was before with a 4 power on there. It's just that when you decided to throw an 8 power, you can see it better. You don't pick it up. So for a target shooter, what I'll do is maybe I'll put in, if they're used to shooting a 4, maybe I'll put in an 8, and I'll train them to all of a sudden learn. If they learn to relax, that pin movement's going to start to slow down. And when they go back to shooting their 4, which was doing this before, is all of a sudden like, yeah, my pin's not moving. Well, it's still moving, but because you've trained yourself with adverse input, you don't notice it anymore. So always add something to the training is what I tell people. So if you really can't do that with compounds where you're going to crank them up to 80 and then shoot at 60, because the bow's not designed to do that. It comes out of tune. But you can play games with, if it's a target rig, you can play games with the scope lens and put to a heavier lens. Practice that way. And I know some people are probably going to hear this right now and be like, he is absolutely out of his mind. Try it. Let me know how it works for you. Because once you try it, and folks, there are lenses that are inexpensive out there. I'm not saying go buy some Vitri lens that costs you $250 with an 8 power on it so that you can use it in practice and never use it again. No, there are lenses you can find on Facebook or whatever. They're polycarbonate lenses. You might pay 40 or $50 for them. You get one of those, you throw it in, take it out, whatever. If you're shooting something like a UV3 scope, like I do, they make cartridges and your lens goes in there. And if I want to change my lens out, I don't have to go in there and pluck out the lens. I just drop the cartridge out, put the other cartridge in, done. And I do that with a lot of the girls that I've trained. So there's easy ways to do it. So I've always preached making it adverse level in the training so that when you actually do the real thing, all of a sudden your body is trained for way worse stuff to happen than actually is going on. And it just makes it easier.
Yeah.
So focus is one, like you mentioned. Are they concentrating on the pin? Are they concentrating on the target? And there are some people, like again, going back to know your rig and know what your limitations are. There are some people who can't see a pin clearly, or they can't see the target clearly. So there's adapters for that, clarifiers and verifiers that will change either one to clear it up. I generally tell people clear up the farther target. Forget about the pin, unless your pin looks ridiculous. And with a target rig, that could be for a number of things. For a bow hunter, if you're not shooting really long range, you kind of want your pin to be very, very clear. So you want to see what's happening. The further out you go, you don't want to see fuzz when you're looking at your pin. Mm-hmm. So you're really concentrating your target, and the pins are much more narrow anyway. So there's ways to do that. Next thing I would say is, so you've already worked on something we've discussed, training it adversely, so you can add stuff on to make it more difficult so that when you actually do it, it'll be easier. The other thing is, as I mentioned at the beginning, some people, they strive for one goal, and then when they hit it, they don't do anything else, because like, oh, my goal was to shoot 10s 20 times in a row. Now I've done it. I've conquered it. Maybe for now, but if you don't keep on trying to improve it, it's going to start to fall down eventually. You're going to start having, taking steps backward in it. So what would you tell them next? So you've identified one thing for them. They're working on it, like holding or something like that. Once they've conquered that, they've got past that level. What is one other thing that you find common with most people? Just talking about somebody intermediate or something like that, a bow hunter. What's another common thing that you see them doing wrong, or that you find most people need correction on?
I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure.
You ever see problems with people in their footwork and like where they're stepping, where they're standing, how they're changing their weight balance?
Yes. Especially if so I noticed that this with myself when I first started doing leagues.
Mm-hmm.
Between every shot I would take a step.
Okay.
I would move. And I didn't realize it until I started doing a lot of leagues and competitions, and sitting there and watching the shooters before me or after me,
Hmm.
and they're not moving their feet. I was like, that actually that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will work on stance with people. Usually when they get to me though, they know not to move. They know not
Hmm.
to step. Um, if they're using a ground quiver, to put the ground quiver right in front of them, kind of thing, things like that. Um, and I will, if someone comes to me, usually the only time I work on someone's feet is when they say, "Hey, every time I shoot, the string's slapping my arm."
Hmm.
So we'll work on that because I don't want them getting hurt. Because if
Hmm.
they get hurt every time they shoot, they're not gonna want to continue shooting. Um, so I'll work on that pretty early on, actually. But yeah.
So one thing that my coach told me, and I found it to be very true, particularly what you're mentioning there. If we're talking about something like stance, you say, well, they try to stay in the same place all the time. So one thing that we do, and I suggest this for a lot of people out there, just try it and tell me if it makes an improvement. And sometimes I see immediate improvement in people is draw, shoot, reset. So your physical place on the line doesn't change, but go through your system. Are my feet in the right place? Are my hips above my knees, shoulder above the hips? This way you know your alignment's correct. Because what happens sometime is, and you'll see this if you watch any pro shooter shoot, okay? Um, Especially Vegas, for example. They're all shooting, they take their shots, and in, I'd say about 95% of them, you'll see them look down, get themselves set again, make sure everything's cool, and then go into their process.
Hmm.
When people have a lot of problems, what they'll do is they'll shoot a good shot and then they'll say, "Oh, that was perfect, but now I can't move. I'm freezing." So they go here now. Just in the act of firing, their hips might have rotated a little bit, or their shoulder might be off a little bit, and now you're forcing yourself to shoot in what could not necessarily be a fluid motion because you're trying to replicate something so bad. So while I tell them is relax, reset, go through the whole thing, good. Now we're ready to go. If you've ever, now this is where how they train in the military, the old school military has something to do with this. If you fired a cannon weighs so much, but that explosion, when it goes off, it moves the whole cannon.
Hmm.
So then you see them having to move it back into position and then fire it again. But if they happen to hit a lucky shot, if those guys were to do like, oh, that was perfect, and just think that they can stay in the same exact position, they're going to be off by a lot because all of a sudden, even though you don't realize that the cannon moved a couple of millimeters this way, it's off by 20 or 30 yards that way. So it's always reset it. And if you see old Revolutionary War movies or something like that, you'll see them. The gunners always loaded the gun, fired, and then you see four guys moving the cannon back to the spots where it's supposed to be, and then they're firing again. So I always say, shoot, reset, recheck, start all over again. And for example, when you're shooting Vegas and they're giving you, I think it's what is it these days to shoot 2.5 minutes to shoot three shots,
It's 2 minutes. 100.
2 minutes to shoot three shots. 2 minutes sounds like a long time, and you'll see people shooting qualifications. Oh, you'll see some pros do it where the the buzzer goes off for them to shoot, and they riff off three shots so fast, and like they're standing around there with another minute left to go, like, whatever. Take your time. If you're going through a checklist, even pros do this. The reason why they can use up all that time is because they're using it to go through the checklist.
Hmm.
If you shoot NFAA 5 spot, which is 5 arrows, I think it's 4 minutes.
Yeah, I think so.
It sounds like a lot of time. It really isn't because
No.
now you're dealing with 5 arrows and a target that looks weird because there are 5 spots on it. So you're trying to say, okay, am I doing this? Am I doing this? So reset, re regroup in your head, and then go from there.
Yep.
Um, which, speaking of regroup in your head, now I want to get into mental part of the game. What percentage of this would you say is all in your head?
90,
That's a loaded question, man.
90, if not 95 or more.
Yeah. So the physical on the bow, your physical conditioning and all that are a very, very small percentage once you learn your basic technique compared to what goes on between your ears. It's a big, big deal. In a lot of people, like when we discussed the ever popular episode of Target Panic, drive-by shooters are because they can't stand, they get this mental click that goes off in their head when they get that pin hits the bullseye. I got to shoot it. Boom, let it go. And they wind up punching the hell out of it. Like I said, unlike controlled shooters who actually do that on purpose, the average person cannot. I'm going to say that again, people. Unless you've been doing this for a long time, the average human being cannot do that repeatedly. You can see guys who are notorious or famous, depending on how you want to look at it, for getting right on there, and they blow people away in events. They'll win a couple events in a row. They're like, once I'm on that, they release a set so light and boom, just goes off. But they've learned to control what happens after the shot. That's why I say it a million times. What happens after the shot is important, if not more important, than what happens before the shot goes off or when the shot's happening. So I don't suggest that for most people, unless you want to make your target panic even worse than it already is. You can experiment with it. Hunters, especially, I'm going to say learn control, learn what the capabilities are of your release so you know how long it's going to take that sucker to go off when you're hunting. Because if you need to get a shot off because an animal is walking behind an obstruction of some kind, and when he pops out the other side, you might only have a window this big to shoot through, you got to be ready for it. And if you wait for the release to go off, as they say, I'm going to let it go off. I'm waiting, I'm squeezing, I'm waiting. You may think you're squeezing. In actuality, your head is so screwed up, you're not doing anything. You're kind of static. You're just like, why is it going off? Oh my God, what am I going to do? You got to practice escalating it a little bit. So that's an important part of mental, like knowing when to take over and knowing when to just let the process happen. Still in control, but let it go through. What other mental things do you see go on with people?
Um, yeah, I see a lot of punching.
Yep.
Sorry.
Got the dry throat going on today, huh?
Yep, allergies.
Yeah, same thing hit me. My eye swollen. See?
Um, Either thinking about, not thinking about this shot necessarily, thinking about the shot before,
Yep.
thinking about the score, thinking about anything besides what they're doing right then and there.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's if you're thinking about anything but what you're doing right then,
Mm-hmm.
it's not going to go well. If you start thinking about, oh, I'm 2 points down, this other guy is 1 point down, you're not thinking about what you should be thinking about, which is your process of whether you're using your back to make the release go off, whatever it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I see that a lot. Um, I see, like you said, punching a lot. Um, I can't think of anything else, honestly.
What about when they lose focus on what they're doing and all of a sudden they're not even looking through their peep anymore? They don't even realize because something went awry during their process,
Yep.
and they don't even realize that they're looking over their peep or under their peep. Hunters, that happens to all the time.
Oh
I
yeah.
know guys who have missed terribly because they I looked at him shoot in the range and I'm saying, did you even look through your peep? Because he skied it like 4 feet above the target. He's like, yeah, I thought I did. And I'm like, dude, you were 4 inches above your peep when you're looking through there.
Or
And that,
or there's the hunters that are in the woods. They have a nice buck come in, and they're so focused on that rack, they send the arrow straight through the rack.
oh yeah, people who shoot at the entire body instead of picking a spot.
Exactly.
You always have to pick a spot.
Mhm.
And I tell people, that's not just the hunters. That's target shooters too.
Oh yeah,
You have to pick a spot.
yeah.
If you're just shooting at the yellow, even though it's the smallest part of a target when you're looking at a Vegas, it's huge when it comes to aiming. So if you can't pick a spot or you don't know where, but you can see when you're looking at it, I can physically see the inner ring of the 10. Maybe I want to always hang my pin on the right corner of the 10 ring. This way I've got somewhere to anchor it. And I know that's what I'm going to shoot every single time. But you have people who literally shoot at the whole target. They don't focus on anything.
Yeah.
And because of that, if you're not looking at one spot on the target, you don't realize that your sight is doing this. It's going back and forth like that. And if you thought your drift was terrible before, it's outrageous now because instead of drifting from the 10 to the 9 and the 10 to the 9 and the 10 to the 9, you're going 10, target bail next to you, 10, target bail next to you. So you've got to be able to control your focus and what you're doing. And if any part of it in this mental game goes off, then you're going to have a problem. So,
It's actually funny because I was talking. Now that you mention, it, I remember I was talking to someone about this just maybe 2 weeks ago. Um, he was saying how he doesn't like shooting five spot because it's so infuriating. Because as you know, the white is all 5 points.
yep,
Um, and he's like, that's the size of that's the size of the nine ring on the three spot, and I can't ever shoot a 300 or whatever.
because
And
it's so much easier to miss. Yeah,
like, I'm like, well, I asked him, I was like, where are you focusing on that five spot target? He's like, oh, on the white. I'm like, that's your problem. You're focusing
yep,
on all of the white.
yep.
It's there's a reason. There's a famous line in the movie in a movie, aim small, miss small.
Mm-hmm,
Don't aim at the white. Don't aim at the yellow. Now, mind you, I have an 8 power lens. I can't see the X on a three spot,
mm-hmm,
even with my 8 power lens, but I can see my 10 ring,
yep,
and I can see now on a five spot, I can see the X.
yeah.
I lock onto that so hard, and I'm almost never out of the white unless something
So,
catastrophic happens.
so most of the kids that I still have left that I train shoot USA archery. So 5 spots aren't a part of that game. They just don't have that. They have that at NFAA. However, a common thing that happens with all shooters, I don't care what age they are, is like you said, the ability to pick a spot or to anchor somewhere on that target that they're going to remember to do every single time. People, if you're listening to this is something that I do all the time. It actually works. Try it if you don't believe me. What I tell them to do is, especially kids, trying to tell them to hold something in the middle is really difficult for them sometimes to comprehend, no matter what age they are. If they're young or if they're teenagers, whatever, it's easy said, but when it comes to them, it's very difficult to do. So like they don't realize that they're moving or something like that. So what I do is when we're sighting them in, I'll say, okay, fine. I want you to take your dot and I want you to put it on the very corner of the yellow. So stick it on the very corner in the middle of the yellow. So the middle's here, and then what they'll do is they'll stick it right here on the right corner of it, or on the left corner, whichever one they're more comfortable with. And we'll sight in that bow with them shooting so that it hits the middle of the target. Even though they're parking it there, it hits the middle of the target. So it sounds like it would work against you because you're aiming in one place and it's moving somewhere else. And mind you, this only works for a static distance. This does not work for people who are shooting different distances. But if you're shooting 50 meter or you're shooting 18 meter, this works. You'll have to adjust for different distances if you decide to do it. But when I've noticed that when people shoot indoor, that's basically all they do. They shoot indoor and then they change seasons and they go to outdoor. So if they're shooting static, they're not shooting in 3D. Don't get me started about 3D. You cannot do this in 3D. People, I don't care what you think. But if you learn this system, I'm putting it on the middle of the yellow all the way to the corner so that my circle has something, my spot has something to anchor it on. We sight it in. These kids score a lot higher doing that than they do if they just try to hold it in the center. And that's as they're learning. Eventually, we can get them to move over more and more. But when they're first doing it, especially like my first and second years, have a lot of problems with this. And some coaches will just tell them, well, just bear with it. You'll get better at it. But trying to get better and seeing no improvement messes with people's heads because they're like, I'm not going anywhere. Frustration is a big thing that contributes to failure. So if you can't show some degree of improvement, then it all goes out the window. So me training them to do this and they start to see success in there, well, that helps them get that out of their head. And now they got one less thing to worry about. Other things that happen, in between the ears, as I call it, different noise levels when you're shooting. If you're used to shooting in a quiet range like yours, and then your tournament is at Lancaster, tell me it's anything like that. Because you're going from having 10 people on the line to having 500 people down the line, plus the crowd, plus everything else, plus hearing the sounds of people playing basketball in the other hall and all kinds of stuff like that.
And the music they play and all this stuff. And
don't get me started on the music, man, because the music will drive you wild. You need to get out of there sometimes. When I'm coaching, I'll be like, they're great during practice, but the music is so bad. I'm like, I'm not shooting, so I can't phase it out. I teach them to shoot with it so they don't even hear it after a while. Because you can go numb to it. It just doesn't bother you. But if it's a new input of noise that you're not used to hearing, that goes right up here. Because now you're thinking about that. That's another thing that's contributing to what's happening. So for me, training, part of mental is training in the same situation that you're going to be in. If you're shooting 3D and all you do is shooting at a flat range, wide open, and you go to a 3D tournament, you're in for a rude awakening because you're shooting at angles. Oh, the best one to me is I actually was at a tournament and somebody was making a stench about the ground's not even. Excuse me? The ground's not even. I'm like shooting with my feet up here and down there. They didn't level this out. I'm like, is this the first time you're shooting 3D? Because nobody levels it out. Like, here's a stake. That's where you shoot from. Have a nice day. Oh, but that's not right. How am I supposed to shoot like this? I'm like, do you hunt? Yeah. Do you hunt on concrete? No. So you're used to not shooting level. Like, no, I'm shooting on open grass like cornfield. I'm like, you're special. Okay. So again, it's unfamiliar input will mess you up.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not just messes you up because you're not familiar with it. It messes you up because it takes away a percentage of brain capacity that you're using to do what you do and that you can afford to expend on getting your shot process. That's why I tell people the better you get, the more automatic all this stuff will be so that you never have to even think about it. You still have to practice it and work on it, but the more sharp and the more frequently you're shooting, the more things become automatic. The only thing that should not be automatic is your release and really your aiming. But everything else, once you've got it down, should be, don't even think about it. I mean, honestly, do you think about opening up a doorknob? Like, well, how am I going to do this today? I'm going to twist it 30 degrees to the right and see. You don't care, just go there, twist it, done. It's not even a mental thing. Your body does it on automatic.
I use the analogy of tying your shoes.
Yep.
How often do you sit there and think about, oh, I've got to do this and I've got to do that and da-da-da. No, you just do it.
I'm kind of the wrong person to say that too, because I do think about when I'm tying my shoes. I'm like, well, I want to make this nice and pretty, and I got a double bow on this. Yeah,
so like you, Angel. It's okay.
Yeah, that OCDness, which comes from tripping on shoelaces like really bad a couple of times, you kind of learned to double check that sort of thing. But mental is important. Okay. It's very important. So you want to practice the physical, you want to practice the mental. Um, what about putting it all together for them? If they're trying to improve, would you suggest that they learn to appropriate a certain amount of attention to different things, or you got to try to just make the best of it when you're shooting? Because I my philosophy is set percentages of what you're going to do. The thing you have the biggest problem with is the one you pay the most attention to,
Mm-hmm.
and then you work it down from there. So if my footwork is perfectly and always good, I rarely have to even think about it. But if my biggest problem is, well, after one of my students, this is her biggest problem, and you've seen her shoot before. She'll shoot, right, and then she does one of these numbers. She
Yep.
pulls away. Um, and the thing I tell her is, you got to work on this. Boom, and then she'll put 90% of her when she puts most of the focus on that, everything else goes automatic, and she's lights out. But when she forgets to do this, other things start getting affected. Now all of a sudden she shoots a 7 and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe I just shot a 7. And it's stuck in the head, taking away more of her mental capacity away.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't have the mental capacity to spare. Sorry, people, not insulting anyone, but it's true. Some people don't have the mental capacity to spare. Um, but again, everything we've been through so far is how to best improve your shot and the things that you should learn to concentrate on. Like I said, you could make something deliberately harder
Yep.
so that when you actually do it, it becomes better. I think that that's something for someone that has an extreme problem where they need to practice under adverse conditions. Like if they can't shoot with noise, shoot with a lot of noise. If they can't shoot with distraction, shoot with the TV on in the corner. I never say too close to the shooting lane because you'll see something on TV and may just distract you, make you shoot the TV.
Yeah.
Let's not do that sort of thing. But you do all that and it works, and then you work on your mental game. How much mental gas you're going to expend from your tank on any one given part of your situation to make it all come together.
Yep.
Now, before we started this, you mentioned that there is a a beneficial aspect to archery. And I will tell you that that is 100% true. But why don't you tell the folks out there what you were talking about?
So I I work with a PTSD vet group, um, and
I have to meet those guys one of these days when I go down there, by the way.
you will. I
Hmm.
actually want to talk to you about having him, the guy that runs it, as a guest. We'll
Okay.
talk about that.
All
But
right.
he, they they do a lot of this group has a fishing team. They want to start an archery team, and things like that. But it they started coming to me because of the way I was teaching the one guy one day, and I was explaining how the thinking of the shot now, this shot and only this shot, it can become like therapy almost.
Hmm.
Um, and how, yes, your problems aren't, any of the other problems aren't gone,
Hmm.
but by thinking about this shot, taking that shot, and then the next shot, and staying in the moment, um, you get mental distance from
Hmm.
the uh, the problems. And again, that doesn't mean they're gone; they are still there. But by having that mental distance, you can, when you're done shooting, can come back looking at it from a calmer mindset.
Okay.
Um, and then on top of that, the when I explain how you don't want to fight the bow or the aim, I try to explain that you want to be pretty relaxed.
Is that you or me?
I think that's me. I
No
apologize.
problem.
Um, Sorry about that.
No problem.
Um, but it's it's kind of like a meditation.
Hmm.
Um, you see all these Buddhist monk guys and Zen masters, and they're very calm and chill and relaxed, sitting up on top of the mountain, whatever, and just chill. Um, and I explain to them how I'll actually have people, I'll say, okay, do me a favor, tense up as many muscles in your body as possible.
Hmm.
And they do it. And I say, okay, almost there. Don't let go. Harder. Tense up harder. And they do. And I don't have them hold it for more than 10 seconds. And I
Hmm.
ask, okay, well, that kind of sucked, right? And everyone always says yes. Because it doesn't feel good to be tense like that. And then I ask them, okay, I don't care what it is you like to do to relax. Um, but whatever it is you like to do, how long can you do that for? If you had no other responsibilities, how long could you do it? And they always say, really, really long time. And um, and I ask, okay, does it hurt to do that? And they're like, no, of course not. I'm like, okay, so if you can do that for months at a time and it doesn't hurt, and I didn't even have you hold that tension in your body for 10 seconds, it wouldn't it be nice to be able to shoot like that where you can feel relaxed? And and I explain how it's almost like a meditation aspect of it.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so that's what I'm doing with these vets, and um it seems to be working, you know. It's not a silver bullet by any means, but it's they can take these things into the rest of their lives, and it's a practice and a mindset that can be used in any aspect
Hmm.
of life to deal with just about anything.
It's absolutely true. And a lot of people, I mean, trying to get veterans into this is something that more and more people are finding is a big help.
Hmm.
And a simple example of what that is, a lot of these guys have an inability because of what they've been through to concentrate on anything for very long.
Yep.
And they really can't. And sometimes it's learn like you mentioned before, it's learning the lesson of how to do something in one aspect of archery that you can apply to many other things.
Hmm.
So you've seen me do this before when I'm telling somebody on how to hold on to the target, put this up against at length and try to hold the tip in the middle of the target. And you stiffen, like you said, stiffen up your arm and tell me if you can do that. And you see it moving like this. Say, okay, now try to relax and do it.
Yep.
Now it doesn't move. Well, sometimes when they see, and it's just sometimes just a single input when they, it's a concept that they're introduced to that they've never heard before, or they've never looked at the context of what it's for. And now, like, I wonder if that works with other things. And then it helps them off, like you said, in different parts of their life.
Hmm.
Because there are some guys who are very, very, um, they have almost like hair triggers when they're shooting because in life, any little thing can set them off
Hmm.
as a result of what they've been through. Um, but if you've if you've trained yourself to be mentally disciplined by just regular practice in archery and moving that and applying it to other parts of your life, you can overcome a lot of that stuff. And when there's a balance between the two of them, you'll find that now all of a sudden they start to become connected. And that's very, very big for people. So being able to help guys like that, that's why when I do that kind of work and help veterans and stuff like that, not just anyone can do it. That's the only thing. You have to have a certain tact and you have to have a certain level of being able to work around because everyone, like every other student, everybody is different.
Hmm.
And some people have certain levels of things that they won't go past. And other people, and be, I can tell you right now, certain guys, because of what they've been through, they don't want to be told to do anything.
Yep.
But you have to work them into, all right, I'm not telling you to do this, but I'm going to show you that if you want something like this to work, then maybe you should try doing this.
Hmm.
Because this is for the first time in their life where they're not being ordered to do something. they're being helped and suggested how to do something,
Exactly.
especially if they've been in for a long time to something that they have never, ever been used to. So it's a really, really big thing. So, like you said, it's it's very, very beneficial to everyone. We're not just talking about vets with PTSD.
Oh
We're
no.
talking about anybody.
Anyone
If
that has any mental disabilities, whether it's depression, anxiety, any of it, this can be used for all of it. And what I've actually found with some of these guys is it's almost it's almost like a self-forced
Mhm,
aspect to it, because there is no one I've ever met that has picked up a bow and did not want to hit the bullseye.
mhm,
Right? So if you have a guy that is explaining how these things can help this arrow here and now, the relaxation aspect of it, all of it, and they explain how it can help, you're most likely someone is going to go, oh right, Jonathan said this, let me try it, let's see if it
mhm,
works. Because if you're not hitting the bullseye after a while, you're like, everyone is like racking their brains, what can I do to make this happen? Well, like I said, if they've heard someone say, hey, this helped me, that they will almost start to do it themselves, and it becomes almost like a self-regulated, self-taught kind of
mhm.
deal.
And a lot of times,
Cool.
what we're teaching them, like you said, it helps them learn methods to deal with other things in their life.
Hmm.
So now all of a sudden, you see that there's a solution. Archery is relatively simple, depending on it's not like end of the world stuff,
Yeah.
but you'll find that solutions to what could appear like big problems that you have when you're shooting, the way that you come around with a solution for that is applied elsewhere in your life. So you're able to do that. So you'll find that being rigid and holding tight doesn't work. Relaxing does. Being very too firm and everything and like expecting your way may not work for you in life.
Hmm.
But you learn to calm down, which anyone who knows me is like, yeah, right. Is that not the pot calling the kettle black? But I'm just saying it may help you work on something else. And, as we're wrapping this one up, I will also say that it's not just veterans, it's anyone, people who have stressful jobs of any kind. Archery is therapeutic in that way. Again, because it can help you focus and learn how to do things which you apply somewhere else. But especially, and for folks who are listening to this who have kids, and it seems like a lot more kids these days than, I mean, way more than when I was a kid. And I don't know, it's just because people are just making them into this now or whatever. Every kid, for some reason, they say this kid's got this problem. He's got OCD, or he's got this, or he's got that, and then they kind of just write them off, saying they'll never be able to do anything on their own.
Yep. Or they
And
put
some of
stress
these
on them left.
kids are great. They pick up shooting and they can adapt to it. You know what I mean? If they're on that learning spectrum where they have a problem, you would be so amazed how these kids who can't sit still for 5 seconds, when they're on the archery range, are completely at peace and
Yep.
they can do their thing. So you can use it for that. And then that'll help them to mentally put some things together in their head to help them out later in life.
Yep.
So that's what I'm saying. It can help a lot of different people, veterans, people with stressful jobs, um, postal workers, as long as we make sure that they're disarmed before they come to the range, um, all that sort of thing. It's all good for that. And I think that people who go back and listen to this, maybe the last 10 minutes that we've been talking, will a light will go on in their head. Be like, you know what? That's kind of true. Or I know somebody who this might work for,
Hmm.
in which case, then if you can't find someone local, and folks, I say this all the time, but if you can't find someone local and you drive, Jonathan, is not that far. If we want to do an event one of these days where we get a lot of people come down who just want instruction and want to find different ways to do something like that, we'll set something up like that.
Yeah.
I don't care. You know what I mean? It's it's about as much about teaching people as helping people. So that's why I try to do it like that. I'm looked at as weird because the way I do things are like, that takes too much time and all that. Well, if you're not willing to give the time, then what are you doing this for in the first place? Oh, I get it. You're here to make a paycheck. All right. So you're the new wave of people who just want to try to get rich off of this, which for those of you who don't know anything about the archery industry, if you're trying to get rich off of this, ain't gonna happen. So just don't try.
Nope.
Um, but yeah, you got to be in it for the right reason. So if you have someone who actually cares, then it'll help. When you go down to Silverbirch, you're going to find all kinds of people like Jonathan who really, really care. And that goes for every single person who works there, including the dog who runs around the shop. And even the cat will occasionally give you that side eye look, but he cares that you're there. You know what I mean? He'll just look at you while he's sitting outside, like, yeah, go ahead, and they'll help you out. Just go in there. You know what I mean? But it's sometimes you have to travel to get somewhere. Now it's only an hour and a half away from New York City, so I'd say it's worth the trip. We'll talk about it after we're done recording here. But we're going to have another event over there soon, another one with the Lab Radar. They got their own Lab Radar now. So they've got one over there. That means we have two of them that we'll be able to use. I'm still corresponding with people from the last one who asked me to change something on the Lab Radar build out. Like, oh, I changed my grains and all that.
Yeah.
Like, they email me like, here's your tape. Because that guy, Jay, he emailed me. He's like, I changed my grains. I said, okay. The only problem with this is I hope I understand what you're telling me, because you said that you reduced it by this many grains. So when I put in the recalculation, go ahead, try this. And I sent him a new set of tapes. So either that new set, I misunderstood. I didn't hear back from him. So either I misunderstood what he said, and his first arrow went like out that high because the tape was really off. In which case, if that's what happened, man, just email me back and we'll fix it, whatever it is. But it doesn't end at what happens in the shop. We're always available for you to email us or call us or whatever, so that we can help you out with anything going on. So just like that, we've been at this for an hour, and I think we covered a lot of stuff in here. We will post when the next event will be. We'll talk about that after this. The other thing that we're going to do, I'm announcing it on here, but I'll put it on the Facebook post and stuff like that. The next one of these that we do will be recorded live here and streamed live on Facebook or live on YouTube or live at both places. I got to see how I can do both of them. Live streams, and we'll have it so people can comment and ask questions in the live comments. We can do all that. I don't think we'll be bringing anybody live on video just yet, because I don't trust some people what they may do when they come on video. But unless I develop some kind of like 2-minute delay, I put them on like, I can't believe that guy was on here. Let's not do that. But that's coming for the next time. Plus, I won't be in this dark room doing it again. By then, I should have my studio room done. One way or the other, it's not going to be in here. It'll be over there. So at least you'll be able to see my face, and I won't look like the Unabomber that Jonathan described me as before we came on here. Like, you're looking all dark over there. I'm like, yeah, man. The lights over there in the wrong place. I don't have the right lighting for it. I don't have my lighting puffs up or anything like that. So I'm just working off my camera on top of my work monitor here. So I'm like, okay, fine. It'll get better. Just so everyone knows, you can find these podcasts on YouTube, because we upload them there. Of course, we get them on Spotify. We get them on Apple Podcasts. On Spotify, I found out if you want to see the video part of this, you got to just sign into your Spotify account. You sign up for a free account if you don't already have one. And then that lets you see the video part of it, unless you're just listening to the audio. When you listen to it on Apple, you're just listening to the audio, and on YouTube, you're getting both. They will get better produced soon, but yeah, I've been having fun doing this the last 2 weeks on video, so it's been interesting, and the response we've been getting, because we post clips of it and stuff like that, has been pretty wild. So if you saw something in here that you have questions on, please email us, highpowerarchery@gmail.com. Jonathan's correct Instagram is now on the notes for everything. You can message him, call the shop if you need something. And last but not least, we're entering the time where people start practicing for the hunting season, because we're hitting June, we're hitting July, and the panic starts in August. So if you're doing that, now would be a great time to go see them because it's not as busy, people.
It's not. It's really
And
not busy right now.
he can he can give you a lot of time and help you out with things, no matter how off the wall they may be. And then when I'm down there, of course, I try to help everybody when I'm around there. I actually like going over there. I see the wonders, I see the scenery, the bears that for some reason are attracted to the road whenever I drive out that way, and I always see standing and stretching by the sides of the road. Um, so it's for me, it's a fun drive to go out there and visit these guys, and I like getting out there as much as possible. I will be looking at for a real estate out there, real estate agent soon. So hopefully you guys have somebody at the range who does that, and we'll see how that goes because New York City is no longer for me. Sorry, folks, Joe's not for me. But yeah, so this has been another interesting and, like I said, new form podcast that we're doing, audio and video. It's been a lot of fun. I think Jonathan enjoys doing this video sort of thing,
It's a good
except that
thing.
the only difference is we have to look presentable at least, even though I look like the Unabomber now. Uh, we, we have to we have to look presentable for it. It's not like we were doing it in our boxer shorts when we're not on video or something like that, recording these things. Um, but yeah, it's a lot of fun. So as usual, be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast. If you have comments, I'm going to leave this episode open for comments, which I normally don't do. But you know what? Whoever wants to comment on it, go do your worst. Go ahead and do your worst. Doesn't really bother us because we're trying to just be open to everyone. But I will reply in some ways that, are defending us. Whatever. Anyway, thanks folks for watching another episode of our series On the Line. Jonathan, any last words?
Have a good night, guys. That's all.
So, like I always say, it's never goodbye. It's until the next time we see you. So until then, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.